Hello and welcome to today's Four Ps podcast. You know, my podcast usually give you a lot of joy, a lot of happiness, and all that other good stuff. You are ready to move on, and you are inspired. But today's podcast is going to make you angry. We are dealing with a topic today that it doesn't matter if you were in it, you know somebody who was in it, and you just emotions will rile up. Yes, we are going to be talking about divorce. We're going to have two different interviews today, one from a man and one from a woman, and they are going to give their side of the story. They were never married together, but they are going to give their side of the story, and their story is going to be very familiar to you. I know that. I don't care what side you're on, but it is going to make you angry, but we are going to talk a little bit more about it right after this.
Do you have the next big thing? That world-changing whatchamacallit? Do you have a story to tell? You need a show-stopping web presence. You need the web spinners at Webinet. With big picture solutions, spinning together SEO, stellar web design, blogging, podcasts, and social media integrations, you'll find yourself developing your latest and greatest thing, idea, or telling that next chapter in your story. Look us up today at webinet.com, and remember, you're not everywhere unless you're Webinet.
Hello and welcome back. Yes, today's podcast is going to make you angry. Divorce. You know, the greatest way to attack and assault your four Ps, being purpose, planning, passion, and persistence, is to be involved in a divorce. It doesn't matter if you're what side you're on, doesn't matter if you are the spouse or the child. Divorce is a massive assault on your four Ps. They are a massive assault. They assault your planning. They assault your purpose. They assault your passion. And they assault your persistence. They really do. They assault your purpose in this way, because probably when you got married, you had an idea of who you wanted to be, what you're going to be, and what this marriage is going to do to get you to serve that purpose. You wanted to be the ideal wife or ideal husband. You wanted to do all those things. You wanted to have the house on the hill and the picket fence and all that good garbage. You really wanted that in your life. Also, as far as planning is concerned, you want to know an attack on your plan, go ahead and file a divorce, because everything you planned, the house that you planned for, the finances that you planned for, the best way to just take it a total attack on your absolute plan, where you're going to live, is going to be attacked when you go through divorce. And also your passion. A lot of people who get divorced, they get cynical. They lose their passion. They lose their passion on everything. They lose their passion on love. They lose their passion on life. They just lose their passion. They just get bitter as hell when they get divorced. It is a massive attack on your passion and also your persistence. You know, when you are going through divorce, when you're going through that fight, you're going through that battle, you get tired. And some people do. They give up. They are not persistent on a lot of things because something happens to their reality. It gets altered quite a bit. And then they lose that persistence. They don't want to be persistent. Some of them, sometimes you don't even want to get out of bed. And so divorce is a horrible thing. And you know what? Divorce, unless you are in an abusive relationship, guaranteed, some of it's your fault. From the very beginning. I have been divorced a lot. And you know, a lot of people give statistics. And I'm going to tell you right now, I am way above the average on the divorce statistics. And you know, as far as statistics are concerned, 100% of all statistics are probably quoted and cited by people who did not do the research to get those statistics. So I'm not even going to give you any statistics on divorce. I do know that it is a massive problem. I bet you every single person listening to this podcast has been through a divorce, knows somebody's been through a divorce, has a relative that's been through a divorce, neighbor that's been through a divorce. You know someone who's been through a divorce, and you take it to heart. And that's why I said you're going to get upset when you hear this podcast. You're going to hear two sides. You're going to hear one. In the first interview, there are going to be some people like, he's right. Yes, so is right. And then the next podcast you hear, or the next interview you hear in this podcast, you're going to hear a woman and you're going to say, yep, she's right. And you know what? Guess what? They are right in some ways, and some ways it's just not. Sometimes it just happens. Sometimes it just happens. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what just happens after we hear these stories. And like I said, you are going to get riled up. I am going to start off with Eric Carroll. Eric Carroll, he is a friend of mine. He's wrote a book dealing with this very subject. Talks about the injustice that fathers go through. And again, like I said, I just said that. The injustice fathers go through. That's what Eric wrote. And you know what? A lot of things that he says in this podcast, a lot of things that he says during his interview, he's spot on. And I know I just had a whole bunch of women say, but hear me out. Hear the entire podcast. Hear this entire episode before you formulate something, because you're going to find out that, we all go through it, and you're going to hear sort of my side when we're done. Be right.
Do you feel yourself battling self-doubt or feeling the weight of uncertainty? You're not alone. Many have those moments when the voice of doubt speaks louder than aspirations. Introducing Triumphant. True stories of inspiration for those navigating the challenges of life. These stories aren't just narratives, they're beacons of hope, guiding you through triumphs of your own. These stories of inspiration, empowerment, and success will be available in April of 2024.
Welcome back. I started this segment out talking about divorce. Divorce is an unfair thing. It happens a lot, and you know what? I have done it a time or two myself. It's just a very difficult thing. It's a difficult process. It is an unfair process. I don't care how you're looking at it, from what view. If you're looking at it from the mother's view, you're looking at it from the father's view, you're looking at it from society's view, it is an unfair process. And today I have a friend of mine. Now, if you ever saw about 2 years ago now, this man actually put me on and put me in front of the world. And so as a result, now I'm doing this. Eric Carroll, welcome to the show. Thank you for being on my show after I was on yours before.
Yeah, Trunnis, it's good to be here.
Thank you very much. Eric, you have turned Dad Talk into you have a massive following when it comes to Dad Talk. You have hundreds of thousands of followers who have gone through, and it's mostly from, you do have a female point of view in there, but it is mostly from the male point of view, talking about the hardships of, and I'm going to call it divorce, but we can just go on even further. Basically, it's broken families. And it is total broken families. I followed you now for the last 5 years, and I have seen where, the tragedy behind it's not just mother and father. It's not just husband and wife. It goes far deeper than that. And you have a book out, or it's coming out, actually, I should say. Eric, please share with us the book.
Yeah, man. So this has been a long time in the making. It's called Injustice for Dads. I'm kind of a rock and roll guy, so I kind of played off of a Metallica album. I'm taking a kind of a rebellious approach to this. One of the biggest challenges I've had since doing Dad Talk is for a lot of these people who haven't been through it, it's very hard for them to understand and to grasp just how corrupt and difficult this system can be. For people that's been through it, such as yourself, no explanation is needed. We know, but, over the past, 5 years I've been doing Dad Talk now. The more I dig into it, the deeper it goes. I didn't realize just how bad the system really was until I started talking to other dads and hearing the stories. And, it's a conglomeration. I've also got several of the other stories. I've got some of the worst case scenario stories that are in there. That we were the only ones that was bringing up the awareness to these situations, because the mainstream media, let's face it, they're not really covering this. Mm-hmm. And when dads don't have much money, or when they get it all taken from them in the family courts, it's very hard for them to get involved in any sort of way. They're out there busting their butt to pay child support. They don't have money to go around advocating and getting laws changed. So it's kind of a catch-22 for these guys. So, and so many people have been through it. I just wanted to make sure we're making people aware, and I also wanted it to be a way for the person that hasn't been through it to kind of, by the time you get through reading this book, you'll understand just how deep this thing goes.
Yes. Now, this book is not. This book is definitely not an attack on women.
No.
This book is just talking about the, and it is, and I'm going to tell you right now. And here's the thing. All right, and if you disagree with me, please tell me. All right. Most of the time, all right. I mean, there's an argument right now that men make more per capita statistically than women.
Mm-hmm.
So when the person, and most of the time, divorce courts actually go against the person who makes the most money.
Yes.
All right. And in this case, so the argument is, yes, men make more money than women, or that's what we're going into the court thinking. And as a result of men making more women, statistically speaking, the person with the most money probably loses the most money in a situation. And that's where the injustice comes. That's where the loss comes. Is that where you're kind of going with this or no?
Yes, and there's some other stuff in there, like, that's a common conversation about the men making the most money, but there's lots of things that don't come along with that. Men make up 93% of workplace deaths. We're not doing the same jobs. It's, I think that's one of the things that gets left out, but you were absolutely correct in there was laws that was made years ago, and there's incentives that come off of child support from the federal government back to the state, which in essence, to keep the story short, if they wanted to make the most money, whoever makes the most money gets the least amount of time with their children, so they pay a max in child support. And that's why you see these cases. There's lots of women celebrities that have been going through divorces over the past several years, and now they are paying, $20,000, $30,000 a month in child support, and it's like, what is going on here? But they were the breadwinner in that family, and that's who benefits the government to make sure they get the least amount of time and pay the max in child support. Well, let's be honest. I mean, who's needing $20,000 or $30,000 a month in child support anyway? It's supposed to be a support, not a lifestyle. And that's just, the system is really profiting off the destruction of families.
Yes, and I have seen that, and it is a profit, because what happens is that is the ultimate way to take the breadwinner, and like we're saying, in the case that you're bringing up, mostly men, you take them right out of the household, and once you take that dynamic out of the household, it does change a lot of things. Single parent, and statistics show. Single parent households have a higher likelihood of just bad things, drug abuse, crime, you name it. Those things happen. It's a higher, even high school dropout rates are higher under a single parent household. And as a result of that being pulled out of the household and not having that co-parenting device in play, you're contributing to, not only are you contributing to the injustice, in your case it's injustice for fathers, but you're also contributing to an injustice against society as a whole. Because as a result, it's a trickle down, trickle up, however you want to call it. What happens is the ultimate loser. Yes, the kids are the ultimate loser, but the other thing is society is an ultimate loser as well. Can you give us a little bit? I don't want you to tell me about the book. I don't want you to give me specific stories, but can you share something in the book that is intriguing?
Oh man. So one thing I tried to do is there were several stories that were, near and dear to my heart that I've followed with Dad Talk. John Mass is probably the one I'm most known for. As a father that was listening to my show, I brought him on Thanksgiving of 2020. And then just a few short months later, in February of 2021, he was shot in the parking lot of a grocery store when he went to pick up his kids by his ex-father-in-law. And yeah, man. I mean, just a couple of months after being on my show, and then I'm standing over the guy's casket. And it was one of those, like, I knew what we were doing was important, but that was the moment it just really sank in. And it's like, okay, this is not just, dangerous from keeping kids from their parents, but there's people losing their lives over this right here. And after that case happened, the floodgates just came open of all these different parents who this was happening to. I mean, where they're losing their lives, where kids were being killed. And that was the case I've followed now for about 3.5 years. Made 2 documentaries about it. I was very close with the family, and you get attached to them, you know, but just kind of walking everybody through what all he went through. And then there was several other ones. I got, you know, one of the more controversial stories right now is my buddy Jeff Younger, who's in Texas. They've been trying to sexually transition his son since he's 7 years old. And Jeff is now spent $1.5 million over the past of 4 years trying to keep from his son going through a medical transition. And the courts are turning him down every time he turns around, and that's in the state of Texas. But it's filled with different stories like that and bits of research that I went to kind of connect the dots for everybody. It's like, okay, one of the things that's used against me a lot to discredit me is that, like, oh, you hate women. It's like, no, I don't. What I am telling you is there are some women out there that do these things. There's a lot of people that paint these dads as deadbeats, and that's not always true. I know so many of these dads that are trying, but I will say at the same time, there are a lot of these moms that do these same things, if not sometimes even worse. And I want to show them like how they are getting away with it. And that's it, just connecting the dots for people to show them like this is why we speak. And here is all the different places that the system, the dots connect and how they're making money off of it. Because when most people hear it, it's kind of like information overload. That's why I'm actually excited for the book to come out. Because if I just did, you know, my podcast all the time, you know, talking about that, it's just too much for people to handle. It's very complex. It is so complex. So this would be an opportunity for them to be like, read at their own pace and just kind of learn what's actually going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Eric, I know this book is coming out very soon. I will say this, I have seen a little bit of the book, and I thank you for sharing with that. I highly recommend, you know, reading the book just to get a different perspective. I think women should read this book as well. Mostly, I think everybody should read this book, especially if you're going through a trying time, because you know what, not only does it give you a different insight or different perspective on your current situation, because I'm going to tell you right now, 53% of all marriages in the United States end in divorce. So there's a very good chance that at least 53% of my population right here have gone through a divorce. I will tell you, your guest and your host on this podcast is 100% have gone through divorce. So, I mean, it happens. It happens more often than not. And again, that is there's a root to this problem, and we need to find that for sure. And that will avoid all this. But I want you to make sure you read the book. I want you to get it. There will be information in the book. It is not released to the public yet. It will be released very soon. Eric, thank you so much for this. Wait, before I say thank you so much, can you tell us, what, based on your research, based on what you've seen, what is one solution that we can pursue?
Oh, that's a rough one because it's multifaceted. Obviously, you know, I'd like to see some of the laws get changed, but it's not just one particular law. You got to do it in so many ways. But one thing, like, I used to be really involved in politics and trying to get the laws changed and stuff. And I realized even in some of these states where the laws are getting changed, that this narrative against the deadbeat dad that doesn't need to be in his kids' lives, and this myth of toxic masculinity is so strong that in order to get any type of relief in this system, we're going to have to change the culture. We got to change the culture and make dad great again. You know, let people see this is what it means when you don't have a father in the home. You know, they talk about this problem with toxic masculinity, but if I go through the fatherless statistics for you, drug addicts, runaway youth, teen pregnancies, the list goes on and on and on. If masculinity was toxic, then all these fatherless children would be thriving. They're not. It's not a problem with toxic masculinity. It's a lack of masculinity. And if we can change that culture and get it back to where the nuclear family, really, I'd like to see mom and dad in the home. They are both equally important. And I just think our country and our world as a whole has lost sight of that.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. You are so much. I think that the family is extremely important, and a together family is even more important. And again, like I said, I think the nuclear family is the best option. But in this society, realistically now, I think that we should just have families that, parents that, I don't like you, you don't like me, but we both love our children. And let's make sure we work together and swallow whatever pride that we have to swallow and be humble and make sure we raise our children to be very, very outstanding citizens in this nation and throughout the world. Eric, thank you so much for this. I know you're a very busy man. We will be right back right after this.
Do you have the next big thing? That world-changing whatchamacallit? Do you have a story to tell? You need a show-stopping web presence. You need the web spinners at Webinet. With big picture solutions, spinning together SEO, stellar web design, blogging, podcasts, and social media integrations, you'll find yourself developing your latest and greatest thing, idea, or telling that next chapter in your story. Look us up today at webinet.com, and remember, you're not everywhere unless you're Webinet.
Welcome back. How many women are probably getting ready to blow up the comment section of the of this podcast in the podcast notes and just blow it up and just say how wrong I am to have this? Don't start typing yet. Please do not start typing yet. Yes, you can even hear the passion in Eric's voice. You can hear, the anger in Eric's voice during this podcast episode or during this certain interview. There's a lot of passion, and I'm sure that a lot of men were listening to this and saying, I have to go out and get this book. And you know what? I want you to get the book. Please get the book. All right. That's why I have them on here. I want you to go ahead and get that book. And I'm sure you are like, yeah, I got to get this book now. I got to see what's going on. Get it. And I want women to get the book too. I want you guys to read it. All right. It is a great blueprint to divorce. And it's a view that you need to recognize if you are going through it, if you are about ready to go through it, if you went through it. It's a book that you need to read, male and female. It is a good book. We'll be right back. We are going to talk to somebody who she was absolutely 180 degrees away from what Eric was talking about. And she's going to be on the podcast next because of the effects on her children, or child, and because of the fact that she has mostly come and resolved the situation. She wanted to remain anonymous. She will go by the name Jan in this episode. And so just to keep everything quiet, we are going to keep it at that. Her name is Jan. I know usually I'll have like a podcast clip, to advertise the podcast on YouTube channel and this, that, and the other. I did not, this time I did not have anybody that I interviewed on this. It's just me running my mouth talking about it. And the reason for that is because, again, passionate. This is a passionate issue. This is an issue that either way, it does get people riled up. But when we come back, we're going to talk to Jan. We'll be right back after this.
Do you feel yourself battling self-doubt or feeling the weight of uncertainty? You're not alone. Many have those moments when the voice of doubt speaks louder than aspirations. Introducing Triumphant, true stories of inspiration for those navigating the challenges of life. These stories aren't just narratives, they're beacons of hope guiding you through triumphs of your own. These stories of inspiration, empowerment, and success will be available in April of 2024.
Welcome. It is a powerful, passionate, divisive word. It's called divorce. And we know that it's once you start bringing it up, it's always somebody's fault. And I'm trying to bring up, being a child from a divorce and also being a parent of a divorce. I know that there really is no true winner in a divorce at all. No one wins. The people who actually lose the most are the children, and we can all probably agree to that. But I wanted to give both sides of the story today, and we did have our last guest on here did give a male's point of view, and he had a lot of valid points. But a divorce is not always something that affects males at all. If I would have time, and if I could, and I just don't want to, I would actually have a child's point of view in this episode as well. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to put any minor through this type of interview and have them have to talk about anything like this. But I did bring the female's point of view. I've known this person for quite a long time. She does not want to give her name. Her name for this interview is Jan. And she does this because, she has resolved her issues with her family, with her entire family. She's resolved her issues with her ex-husband and her child through this, who's now an adult, is living a great balanced life, and she wants to keep it that way. However, she does want to talk about the injustices that do happen from a female's point of view. Jan, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you being here. Jan, we were just talking about divorce, and and there's a book that's out that is written from a male point of view. Again, valid points. But, there are a lot of females, especially now, because the incomes with females are outpacing. Now, they're still below male. I understand that on the average, but they are now starting to outpace male incomes. And a lot of females, a lot of wives in relationships are now in a situation where they're the ones that now hold the financial burdens, and they are somewhat treated unfairly, you being one of those individuals. Tell us about your experience.
Well, I was married for 23 years, and my husband woke up one day and decided that he was done being a dad and a husband. And yes, and I thought it was a joke. So I laughed it off. Okay, ha, ha, ha. What would you like to do today? Do you want to go to the beach? It's a nice day. He says, no, I'm serious. I have decided that I'm done being a husband and a father. Not that he didn't love our son. He just didn't want the full-time role of doing it. He blamed it on having a midlife crisis, but I was shocked. It was absolutely devastating. I had spoken to him about going to counseling, and he didn't want to do it. He washed his hands, and he was basically done overnight.
There were no, just to wake up one day, because the reason why I'm kind of stunned is because your reaction to him saying that. It's like I say that all the time. It's like, all right, well, this is over. I'm done being an adult. I quit. And I say it as a joke.
And that's exactly what I thought it was a joke. So I laughed it off and started talking about what we're going to do during the day.
So obviously there were no, I don't want to say there could have been. You're probably looking at it back. If I look back now, there was a sign. But at that moment, you didn't see anything. That's why you responded the way you did. Is that correct?
Correct. I did not see anything. As a matter of fact, I laughed it off more than once in the conversation until I realized he was actually serious. His whole demeanor changed, his facial expressions, everything changed, and I realized that he was actually serious. And I was devastated because I didn't see any signs. I didn't see it coming. It really threw me for a loop.
Wow.
It worked.
So, okay, and I'm just kind of stunned because I don't think I've ever heard of someone just say, okay, I quit. As time went on, and now as you've had time to reflect, because I really do want my audience to, and I'm not trying to scare my audience at all, but as you look back, were there any warning signs, anything?
No, it's been a little while since we've been divorced. At that moment, I can still say there were no signs. Now, when I look back now saying when you try to start figuring things out, especially being a woman, the first part is I'm not pretty enough. I'm not skinny enough. There's another woman involved, but that was never the case. That was never the case. And I do believe to this day, when I look back, and I think a lot of it had to do with outside influences, which was basically, I believe it was the demise of my marriage. But my husband to this day will still say, you know what, we started young and I hit a midlife crisis.
And that was it.
And that was it.
So you were, as far as income's concerned, you had the larger income. You were basically the support. Now, the thing that happened to you, this is different. So he says, I don't want to be a father. I don't want to be a husband right now. I don't want to be the father in the capacity I was, and I don't want to be a husband at all.
Right.
Okay. So in other words, I am just going to go out and just be a bum or beach bum or whatever and just hang out and go back and relive the quote unquote glory years of my teens and 20s. And then you're going to, because like in male's standpoint, usually in a male's, when the male gets mad, they're mad because they lose their house, they lose the kids, they lose the wife. In your case, you are not losing anything. You are gaining the kid and you are gaining the house. But in addition to those responsibilities that you now have to do entirely on your own, you now you're in a state that is an alimony state, and you had to pay him.
I had to pay him, and it surprised me because we were married in a different state. So I didn't realize how different the laws were. So I divorced in the state that I live in now. And if I knew then what I know now, I think I would have divorced where we got married. But it was a very difficult decision because I was sitting there like, wait a second, he's walking away from us. And let me make something clear. It's not that he's like, I don't love my son. I don't want to be a father. He was just at the point in his life that I just want to be free. I will be here for him. I'll give him rides if he needs to go somewhere, but I don't want it in this capacity. So there was never a discussion about child support, or I'm sorry, custody, never a discussion. And even if there was, I mean, I knew that my son was coming with me, but he really just wanted to go and do his own thing completely. And as far as the laws in California, I never expected that I would end out the way I did in the divorce, which was paying I ended up having to sell my condo that I owned because I couldn't afford alimony. And at the time, my son was playing a very, very expensive sport, which I couldn't afford alimony. I couldn't afford a mortgage, and I couldn't afford putting my son through the sport. So it was very challenging and very emotional for me, but I knew I had to keep it together because of my son.
Yes, and you did a great job of that. You really did. So my thing is, and this is where, okay, you were kind of dealt financially, if anything else, I mean, emotionally as well, but it was kind of dealt in it. It was an injustice because it wasn't fair. And what I mean by not being fair, you had custodial custody. You had your son was living with you, and you had someone else who had the only responsibility he had was himself financially. And
Right.
but he also had these, I guess, speaking in coming to America terms, these wild oats or whatever to sow or whatever he wanted to do. And you had to pay for it.
Yes, I had to pay for it. As a matter of fact, when it ended, we first went through the court system, and he wanted more of a faster process because he knew until we sealed the deal, he couldn't get his first check from me. So we ended up going through mediation, and which actually benefited me a little more. It sped up the process because all he wanted was his first check. Because I was financially responsible of helping him move out and getting him situated in a place. He actually received more money from me a month than he probably spent when we were married. But I had the expense of our son full time, and he would do little things like drive him to his sports or pick him up from school. And if he took him to eat, there's been times where he actually submitted the receipt to me for me to pay him back for something as simple as a Subway.
So I'm sorry, not you. He had no financial responsibility.
None.
At all.
None.
He didn't even have to share financial responsibility.
No, what he did do was he did participate in some of the finances for the sport, because I actually had to fight that because it was a sport that he wanted him in.
Okay, so basically, and I'm sounding like a businessman. All right, here you go. Basically, what you did is you had to. All right, so you got to be. You weren't sharing anything. You were getting a discount on alimony, so this person can play the sport that he wanted to play. He wasn't paying anything. He was just like, here, I'm going. It's like me saying, you have to pay $6,000 for this car, but I'm going to give you $8,000 so you can give me $6,000 back.
Right. That's exactly it. So basically what he calls paying his share, I was actually paying. So he walked away. I mean, I have to be honest, talk about injustice. He walked away in a better financial situation than he had when we were actually married.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The first year and a half I had to pay off. Was responsible for paying off his credit cards. He took the car that was already paid off. I had to pay his health insurance for the first year. I had to pay for him to move into a new place. And he received a lot of money a month. The amount of money that my mortgage at the time was a month just to be him.
All right. So how did that affect your relationship with your child? Because and what I'm saying is because the father made the decision to change life, all right, change his lifestyle. You were solely responsible for him to change his lifestyle financially.
Yes.
So as a result of being solely responsible to change someone else's lifestyle, you in turn had to change your lifestyle.
I had to change everything.
And your son had to change his lifestyle.
Yes.
So he had to leave his friends probably because you had to move into another place. He had to change a lot of different things. He had to change his room that he was probably accustomed to. He had to change the environment that he was accustomed to. He was uprooted at that time. And I'm sure that on occasion he heard mom say, I can't afford it. All right. And that's probably something when both of you two were together, he did not hear very often.
Right. Not at all.
Not at all. All right. So how did that affect him?
It affected him, and people don't realize that, you know, I besides my divorce, I witnessed a lot of divorces, and the people that are getting divorced, they're always about me, not realizing that the biggest impact are on the children.
Right.
Biggest impact. And I didn't care about what I was going through because I was older. I had a younger son that was trying to figure out what happened and why am I living here? Now I'm moving here. And why do I have different friends? And why do I have a different bedroom? And I went from a bigger place to this little apartment, and we own that place and with a pool, and now we're living here. It was a big adjustment emotionally, and he couldn't understand why he didn't even see dad that often.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very hard for me because me being the mom I am, I never wanted to talk bad about his dad.
Right.
I never wanted to bash his dad. So regardless of the situation, I always tried to put a spin on it to where my son never felt like it was his fault.
Okay.
Which was, it's very hard because for anyone who's been in divorce situations, there are times that you want to lash out going, this is not my fault, it's your dad's fault, you know, but I couldn't do that. But he went through a lot of emotions. And it was really, really hard. It was a hard.
So, I mean, your son is doing very well now. You know, and that much I do know, and I will share with the audience. But how's the relationship with his father now?
It's really not.
Okay.
We'll go out occasionally and go out to eat. And I actually feel really, really, really bad for my son.
Mm-hmm.
Because strong as I am as a woman, there's certain things a woman can't teach a boy when it's about becoming a man. And I'll be the first to admit it. I'm very strong, but there's certain things I can't teach him, and how to be a respectable man and how to treat women. I do little things like, if we go out, no, you open the door for me.
Mm-hmm.
He's older now, so he does it. But those are things that I could do to teach him. But because his dad really wasn't around much, I do feel like he missed out on a lot of things that could have been very helpful to him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that this made you you've always been a sweet, kind person. And how do you feel about, if ever given the opportunity again to get married, would you do it?
I really enjoyed being married, but I think I would have to do things a little different than what I did before.
Absolutely.
And I'm saying, and I'm not even necessarily, I know people are thinking, do a prenup, do a prenup, do a prenup. It's a lot when you're married. You invest so much of your heart, so much. And I'm not saying that a broken heart's not going to happen again. I did love being married. I just will be very selective and choose differently.
Absolutely. It's funny how I had a segment just before that, and I was talking about how, marriage, we always blame the other person, but if we actually sat and reflected, sometimes it is our fault. And I did bring up something about the choices that we make going into a relationship. And sometimes you have that impulse buyer, oh, I'm going to marry that person like real quick. You don't even know who that person is, but you just maybe had a great date or something like that. You want that to linger on. I love what you just said, that, I love the concept. However, if ever given the opportunity again, it would be a more methodical. It would not be a quote unquote impulse buy, so to speak. And I do love that as well. I do know that, and I'm going to tell the audience this, her son is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. The relationship that those two have is impeccable, mother and son. It's a great relationship. And also, like many divorces, male, female, doesn't matter. There's a level of bitterness that comes out after the fact, not only towards the person that they divorced, but towards everybody. And you will never see any type of bitterness in this person's heart ever at all. And she is a phenomenal individual. Me, you'll see a little level of bitterness, but it's not towards people. It's towards me. It's like, man, you're an idiot. Why did you do that? I'm bitter towards myself. But yeah, I will say that there is no level of bitterness at all. Jan, thank you so much for being on the show. I absolutely appreciate it. We'll be right back right after this.
Do you have the next big thing? That world-changing whatchamacallit? Do you have a story to tell? You need a show-stopping web presence. You need the web spinners at Webinet. With big picture solutions, spinning together SEO, stellar web design, blogging, podcasts, and social media integrations, you'll find yourself developing your latest and greatest thing, idea, or telling that next chapter in your story. Look us up today at webinet.com, and remember, you're not everywhere unless you're Webinet.
Welcome back, and I truly hope that I presented both sides of the coin today. I truly hope I did. I brought out the male point of view. I brought up the female point of view to divorce. The thing is I said earlier that divorce is probably your fault. If it was an abuse involved, it's probably your fault. All right, and you're probably pissed at what I just said. And this is what I mean by this. I've been divorced 3 times. And in those divorces, I have to be wrong somewhere. And as I look at it, I'm 53 years old. As I look back at my situation and at what I went through, yeah, I was wrong 3 times. I was wrong in the process even to get married in the first place. There's a couple things that I learned in getting married. Number one, you need to use the 4 Ps as the foundation of your marriage. And I know I just messed up every religion in the world. You need to use God as a foundation. Yes, you do. But what I mean by use the 4 P's as the foundation of the marriage is this. Okay. Yes, your foundation should be your religious and your cultural background. Yes, I understand that. I am going to give you that. That should be the foundation. But right above that foundation, right above it, needs to be the 4 P's. You need to sit down with your spouse. You need to sit down with your potential spouse, and you need to sit there and share what your purpose is and what that person could be in your purpose. If those do not match, then you shouldn't get married. You should talk about planning. If you guys are going to spend till death do us part is such a vague statement. Okay? Because from there until death, there's a lot of shit that you got to do. You got to work. You got to get a house. You got to raise kids. Possibly you have to work until you retire. You got to pay bills. You got to see where you're going to live. You got to do that. That is a conversation you need to have. Today, this is what I want to do. If you are marrying somebody who wants to retire by the ocean and you want to retire in the mountains, you're going to have a problem somewhere down the line. Okay? There's going to be a problem when it comes to retirement. That is a plan. That is something that you are planning to do. Okay? If you want to have 2 kids and they want to have 1 kid or they want to have 4 kids, that's going to be a problem. You need to talk about that. You need to get everything out. You need to say, this is what when I started planning my life, and I started planning my life with someone, this is the plans I have. And if you can't fit or if you can't find something in that, then you know what? Part is friends right there. Because you know what? You don't have a problem today, but guaranteed you're going to have a problem tomorrow. Another thing, what really gets me, and this is something that got me too. Okay? I am real quick, even now, since I am an entrepreneur. I work everywhere, but even in my work, we have to have a meeting. I need to talk to you for a second. Why? Because I need to see what direction we're going in. Okay? And that's one thing that we don't do as families. We don't do as a couple. I didn't do it. Okay? Sometimes you need to have weekly meetings. You know, a lot of people I talk to that get divorced, well, why did you get divorced? We just grew apart. This is how you grow apart. What happens is you guys start doing it. You guys start going on a trajectory. And if you don't start talking, that trajectory gets far and farther and farther and farther apart. And it gets so far apart, you need to talk about things. People change as they get older. And as they change when they get older, or just as environment changes, they change. You need to make sure you're talking to that person. Have a conversation with that person. What do you like this? What do you like this? How's this? How's that? Where do you want to be? Now, since you've made this decision at work, what does the rest of your decisions look like? Have you changed from our initial conversation? How can we incorporate your new goals and your new vision with our original plan? Is it fit with our original plan? What are we going to do now? Those need to be conversations. Those need to be conversations that you have every day. Not that, hey, I just went and found this and da, 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 da. No, don't throw stuff. You need to be as strategically minded. Again, when I talk about planning in my book, I talk about planning strategically. I never talk about tactical planning. Okay? Tactical planning is reactionary. Okay? Something comes at you, you have to sit there and you have to do something. A divorce is a tactical plan. No one ever strategically plans to get a divorce unless you are very, very, very sick in the head. Okay? You need to be strategic about your marriage. You need to be strategic. That reduces divorce, or it prevents you from getting married, period. Sometimes the best way to avoid marriage is to not get, the best way to avoid divorce is to not get married, period. That's sometimes the best thing you can do. Like I said, divorce destroys almost everything. It is a nuclear missile to the 4 Ps. Now, a lot of people, if you're in a bad marriage and you get out of the marriage, you sit there and say, you'll be better off without that person. And that is not a true statement. The true statement is you will be better off eventually without that person. Even if you did not initiate that divorce, you will be better off eventually without that person. Because if that person didn't want to be with you and that person filed a divorce in some way, eventually you would be horrible with that person. Because if you stayed on the trajectory where that person just kept you around, okay, you're going to be miserable. You'll never be happy. All right? Be lucky that that person dropped you, so to speak. Be very happy that that happened, because now, guess what? Your trajectory now changes. And now, again, eventually, it may hurt today. My father used to say, one monkey doesn't stop the show. It may slow it down, but it doesn't stop it. Out of all the things my father ever said, that was one of the truest things he's ever said ever. He said a lot of other true things, but that's it. The other thing you have to think about, speaking about my father, here's a transition. Okay? The reason why I got divorced 3 times, I'm going to tell you why I got divorced 3 times. It's because of my version of marriage. Before you get married, okay? Before you marry somebody else, you need to know what your version of marriage is and what that other person's version of marriage is. I remember when I was growing up, and you guys know a little bit about my backstory growing up, my parents separated a couple times. I know that one story we talk about in my brother's book, he focuses on the last time my parents separated. I focus on 2. There's a first time. When I was in first grade, my mother and father separated. They separated for about 1.5 years, 2 years. I was with my dad. And I'll never forget, when I was with my dad, it was just me and my dad. We lived in this huge house together. I should write a story about that. It should be a book, the way all the things happened. We had people coming in and out of the house. You know, seriously, he had parties at the house all the time. He had Rick James, Shaka Khan, you name it. They were coming in and chilling in the house, just chilling. All right. And it was just the weirdest thing. During that time, again, like I said, I was in first grade, second grade. I used to have, and I kid you not, I would have like 3 stepmothers a day. No joke. 3 stepmothers. I had one cook me breakfast, one made me lunch during the summertime, and one made me dinner. And all 3 of them were different. I had 3 different stepmothers every single day. I didn't have any stepmothers on the weekends because we were at the skating rink during the weekends. Now, the thing is I used to laugh about that with my dad, and that was funny. But as I grow older and my dad is no longer here, I realized that kind of really, really, really had an effect on my relationship with women and when I got older. And that effect that I had with women when I got older was the fact that I thought that, hey, there's always going to be somebody else. And, you know, going through 3 divorces, I guess that's what I thought, and that's what I believed. It was wrong. It's costly. Not only is it costly financially, it was costly to my children. All right. I have a great relationship with all my children, but I'm sure I sit there and talk to them. Do not do what your father did. I'll tell them that in a heartbeat. All right. Don't. All right. Fact of the matter is that in divorce, unless it's a situation of abuse, or if it's a situation that is of ill intent of any way, shape, or form, divorce is always everybody's fault. Sometimes divorce is something that, you know, I got married because everybody expected me to get married. I got married because I already sent the invitations out for the wedding. What the hell ever? Stop. All right. I'd rather give you back your money for your gift and be out $10,000 and be out hundreds of thousands of dollars, which so many people, male and female, are out when they get a divorce. If somebody told me, hey, you take a loss of $10,000 today, or 20 years from now, you take a loss of $400,000, what are you going to do? I think I'll take the $10,000. Here you go. All right. And that's just the financial end of it. Think about all the emotional things that you put yourself through. Think about all the emotional things you put other people around you. Because it's funny, when you get a divorce, everybody gets involved. Divorce is a cancer that actually affects your community. It affects your neighborhood. It affects your home. Not only does it affect you, it affects the justice system. It affects everything when you get a divorce. So please think about it. And again, I know that this podcast episode probably angered you. It probably made you mad, but this episode was necessary. It was necessary because I just want you to know how divorce can impact you achieving your ultimate goal. And you know what? I talk about the 4 P's of planning, purpose. I say the 4 P's all the time. I know I talk about the 4 P's of purpose, planning, passion, and persistence. But you know what? Divorce really does? It affects that 5th P that I talk about sometimes, and that's peace. It does affect it. If you do not deal with it the right way, it affects it quite a bit. Our next episode is going to be a lot lighter than this, and I'm going to make you happy again. All right. I will talk to you next week. Have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.